Your life is not chaotic because you lack the hours of the day. It is chaotic because you lack the order of the mind. The difference between a life that flows like a river and a life that falls apart like a rusted engine is organization. I am not speaking of the trivial organization of drawers and calendars. I am speaking of the mental engineering that arranges the human soul. Every wasted hour, every broken promise, every dream that has been delayed until the furnace of youth has gone cold traces back to one singular brutal truth. You never mastered the law of order. The undisciplined mind builds confusion. The organized mind builds empires. If you will listen with the intensity of a man whose fortune depends on it, because it does, I will show you the principles that turn drift into direction. You keep saying you will start tomorrow, but tomorrow is not a location on a map. It is a decision you are too afraid to make today. Discipline is not a punishment for your past. It is the freedom of your future. Until you command your thoughts with the authority of a general, you cannot command your hours. Until you master your time, you will remain a common slave to every passing distraction. There is a rhythm to all great achievement. Every success story, from the rail lines that cross this continent to the steel mills that illuminate the night, is a symphony of order. Each note, each task, each thought is arranged in harmony with a singular purpose. You are not failing because you are weak of limb. You are failing because your days are lawless. Imagine rising each morning with the cold clarity of a blueprint. Imagine knowing exactly what must be done and exactly why it must be done. No more hesitation, no more confusion, just clarity. That calm is not a gift from the heavens. It is a wage earned by mastering organization as a spiritual law. The man who organizes his life does not live faster. He lives with power. His hours obey him. His mind serves him. His results multiply because every action flows from definiteness, and definiteness is the first mark of the master. Chaos is not your enemy. It is the test that reveals whether you rule your mind or whether the world rules you. The moment you bring order to your thoughts, every area of your existence begins to align: your capital, your labor, your relationships, and your peace. The world rewards those who move with clarity, but clarity is not found in the street. It is built in the workshop of the spirit, law by law. I will give you the 7 principles that have organized fortunes, governed nations, and built the lives of men who refused to drift. This is not about tidying a desk. This is about restoring dominion over your destiny. When you learn these laws, confusion will leave your house forever. The undisciplined mind lives in reaction. He spends his life cleaning up the wreckage of yesterday. The organized mind lives in creation. He designs the architecture of tomorrow. You must decide tonight which one you will be. There is a law to success as exact as the law of gravity, and it begins with order. When your mind is disciplined, your future becomes measurable. Your dreams become plans. Principle 1. The law of definite purpose. The most dangerous man in any industry is not the man who fails, but the man who is vague. Failure can be corrected by a change in method, but vagueness is a rot that cannot be cured. The drifting mind builds confusion. The organized mind builds monuments. Every life that lacks order is missing one central law: purpose. A man cannot organize his days until he has organized his direction. Purpose is not a luxury for the wealthy. It is a law for the hungry. Every thought, every habit, and every plan must obey a single aim, or they will war against one another until the engine explodes. Without direction, the mind becomes a battlefield of competing desires. You want wealth, but you fear the risk. You crave peace, but you chase the noise of distraction. You wish for success, but you waste the very hours required to build it. This is the chaos of the untrained mind. The first duty of an organized life is to choose one definite purpose and make every thought march in that direction like a column of iron soldiers. When I, Andrew Carnegie, began my climb from the soot of the bobbin boy to the height of the steel master, I had one idea so simple it seemed almost foolish to the common man: to make steel cheaper and stronger than any man had ever imagined. I held that thought until it became the very pulse of an empire. Every department, every manager, every laborer, and every decision was organized around that one purpose. It was not luck that built the Carnegie fortune, it was alignment. Purpose simplifies the complexity of life. It divides every decision into two binary answers. Does this serve my aim, or does it not? Without that compass, every choice feels urgent and every distraction seems important. But when the mind has direction, confusion vanishes like fog before the rising sun. Henry Ford once remarked that thinking is the hardest work in the world, which is why so few engage in it. He meant true thinking, the act of deciding what one lives for and organizing the hours accordingly. Purpose turns the friction of chaos into the rhythm of achievement. When you know what you want, time begins to obey you. Hours that were once wasted now fall neatly into the machinery of your day. Even fatigue feels noble when it serves a definite cause. The farmer rises before the dawn, not because he loves the cold, but because he loves the harvest. Write your purpose plainly. Do not give me a paragraph of wishes. Give me a command. I will master my craft. I will build an empire of service. I will create abundance through faith. This sentence becomes your creed. Write it. Read it when the sun rises. Speak it before the sun sets. In time, it will sink into the deep water of the subconscious, and your mind will begin arranging the material world to fulfill it. The man who drifts through life blaming chance is blind to this law. He says, "I never had an opportunity," yet opportunity has passed him daily like a train he was too disorganized to board. He simply did not recognize it, for he had no definite use for it. The man of purpose sees what others overlook. He converts chance into choice. Every great life, every discovery, and every empire began as one ruling thought, held long enough to summon its own form. Thomas Edison's burning question, how to create light without flame, organized his entire existence. His failures did not discourage him because his purpose had given meaning to his effort. When you work under a definite aim, failure is merely education. The undisciplined man tries to find meaning in motion. The purposeful man finds motion in meaning. One races in circles, the other walks directly to the vault. The one who wanders through many pursuits never excels at any. The one who devotes himself to one aim becomes a master. The world bows to mastery because it recognizes the certainty of law. You cannot think clearly until you have decided clearly. The mind resists instruction until it knows its destination. The moment you choose a definite purpose, your thoughts begin to obey like laborers under a foreman. Fear weakens because fear thrives on the damp soil of uncertainty. Decision dissolves doubt. The man who knows exactly what he wants rarely feels the weight of anxiety. His mind is too busy creating direction. Purpose awakens the imagination. Once the destination is chosen, the infinite intelligence begins sending ideas, people, and opportunities suited to the task. What the common man calls coincidence is only the result of definiteness drawing support from the unseen laws of the universe. If you have ever held a single aim with the passion of a furnace, you know this truth. The whole world begins to conspire in its favor. You must test every action by one question. Does this move me nearer to my aim? If the answer is no, refuse it. This is not harshness, it is the discipline of the architect. Great fortunes are not made through scattered effort, but through selective obedience. John D. Rockefeller's power came not from doing much, but from doing only what served his definite purpose. Definiteness also creates peace. The wandering mind lives in tension because it serves too many masters. One moment it seeks approval, the next comfort, the next wealth. But the organized mind, fixed on one aim, moves serenely. It no longer debates with itself. Its energy flows in one direction. Others will begin to sense this calm confidence in you. You will seem different, not hurried, not restless, but ordered. They will trust you not because you ask them to, but because definiteness commands respect. The world admires the man who knows. The power of purpose grows through the engine of repetition. Each time you affirm it, you engrave it deeper into the subconscious steel. Each day lived in harmony with it increases your magnetism. Eventually, even your expression, your tone, and your very presence will communicate direction. People will follow you instinctively because the world is hungry for a leader who is not lost. Say this often: I know what I want. I know where I am going. My thoughts obey my purpose. Say it until your words become the truth of your reality. Purpose not only organizes your hours, it organizes your identity. You begin to act, dress, and speak as the man who has already achieved the result. The subconscious cannot resist such faith. It begins constructing that identity in the outer world. You will find your habits changing without effort, your time flowing naturally into order. Purpose also reveals what must die. The man who chooses his aim must also release his distractions. Old habits, empty entertainments, aimless talk, all must yield to the furnace. This pruning is not loss, it is refinement. A sculptor removes the marble not to destroy the stone, but to reveal the masterpiece within. Do not fear narrowing your aim. One definite purpose is more powerful than 100 vague wishes. You cannot strike 10 targets with one arrow. When you master one direction, all others align themselves in service to it. Focus builds confidence. Confidence builds faith. Faith builds power. If you are uncertain of your purpose, begin with service. Ask, where can I add the most value? What skill or strength can I perfect that benefits the industry of man? Purpose founded upon service never fails, for it aligns with divine law. I have always said, no man can become truly rich without enriching others. Purpose that serves builds order everywhere it touches. Once your purpose is fixed, write it daily until you feel it guiding your hand. The written word fixes the thought into form. Each repetition tightens the thread between the idea and the reality. Over time, you will notice that even your circumstances rearrange themselves to reflect your aim. Purpose is not built in a day. It is refined through the heat of use. Each obstacle reveals a new aspect of it. Each decision strengthens the iron. The organized mind begins his day with purpose and ends it with review. He knows that a day spent without advancing his aim is a day lost to the void. The drifter sleeps in confusion and wakes in fatigue. The organized man sleeps in peace and wakes with direction. Once you have chosen your purpose, guard it as a sacred flame. Protect it from the cold winds of doubt, the soot of distraction, and the rust of indecision.
Feed it daily with thought and faith. When your purpose becomes clear, life itself becomes simple. You no longer chase time. Time obeys you. You no longer envy others. They cannot rival your direction. You no longer drift. You design. That is the mark of the organized mind, serenity through purpose. And when this clarity takes root, the next step becomes inevitable. For purpose, once chosen, demands structure. Desire without design is merely chaos with a different name. In the next principle, you will learn how to give your purpose a plan, a form so precise that success becomes predictable and your life begins to move in perfect rhythm with the law.
Every definite purpose requires a structure through which it can move. Just as the raging waters of a river require a deep and narrow channel where they will flood the valley aimlessly, planning is that channel. It transforms the vapor of faith into the solid system of reality. It takes the invisible vision and gives it a direction, a measure, and a predictable end. A dream that remains unplanned is merely a hope, and hope is a poor fuel for an industrial engine. A dream that is organized is destiny taking physical form. Every man who has achieved enduring success in the history of this nation was first a builder of plans. The world remembers the towers, the rails, and the fortunes, but those results were born from blueprints drawn in the absolute silence of a disciplined mind. Henry Ford could see the rhythm of an assembly line long before the first piece of machinery existed to support it. I could see the skyscrapers of New York rising from the red ore of the earth before a single furnace was lit in Pittsburgh. We all obeyed one singular law: organized planning. Desire, if it is to build an empire, must be disciplined. It must be divided into steps, into hours, into tasks so precise that confusion cannot find a crack to enter. The man who works without a plan works under the unstable heat of emotion. He is at the mercy of how he feels when the sun rises. But the man who works with an organized plan works under the cold authority of law. Law brings peace because it removes the friction of guesswork. The mind cannot remain anxious when it knows exactly what must be done at 10 o'clock, at noon, and at sunset. Sit down with your definite purpose written plainly before you, as if it were a contract with the universe. Ask yourself, what actions, if repeated daily with the precision of a clock, would bring this vision to pass? Do not think in large, impossible leaps. The common man fails because he tries to jump to the summit. The Titan succeeds because he builds a staircase. Think in sequence. The great oak tree grows not by an explosion of wood, but by the steady, rhythmic repetition of the cell. Write each step in its proper order. Give it a time. A plan without a timestamp is only a wish written in the dust. Each evening, as the light fades, you must review that plan, cross out what was conquered, refine what remains, add what was learned in the heat of the day. Planning is not a rigid cage, it is living order. The successful man does not plan once and then go to sleep. He plans daily, adjusting his structure as new ideas emerge from the furnace of action. The mastermind principle operates most effectively through the engine of organized planning. When two or more minds unite upon one purpose, their collective intelligence creates solutions that no single mind could achieve in isolation. You must surround yourself with those who believe in your aim, those who can supplement your weaknesses with their own specialized knowledge and multiply your strength through their alignment. No empire was ever built by the hands of one man alone. Ford had his engineers, I had my managers, Edison had his assistants. We were all united under a singular, organized direction. Beware of the half plan, the man who plans with half his mind
and acts with half his heart will fail wholly. You must plan fully, act completely, and review regularly. The plan is your map. The review is your compass. The sailor who sets his course once and never checks his direction will soon find himself drifting off the line of success and into the rocks of ruin. Do not be discouraged when plans change. Change is not failure, it is refinement. The river bends around the mountain, but it never forgets its destination, the sea. So too must your plan adapt to the terrain of reality while remaining fiercely loyal to your definite purpose. When new information arrives from the market, the wise man adjusts his path, but he never abandons his aim. Each goal requires a schedule of attention. You must assign your best hours, your gold hours, to your greatest aim. The morning is for the labor of creation. The evening is for the labor of reflection. Thought without a schedule breeds the rot of drift. Order your hours, and your mind will soon find its own rhythm. A plan also teaches the vital lesson of patience. The man who demands a harvest the very moment after he has planted his seed destroys the crop. Growth is not delayed, it is merely developing unseen beneath the soil. The disciplined mind respects the law of time. Each day's obedience to the plan builds a momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. The man who keeps his plan in motion will soon move mountains through the sheer force of quiet, relentless persistence. I have always said that most men fail not for a lack of intelligence, but for a lack of organization. They scatter their effort like steam escaping from a broken pipe, moving in many directions with great energy, but achieving little progress. Concentration, not commotion, builds empires. The man who keeps his work aligned with his written plan never wastes a single hour. Do not think of planning as a burden of drudgery. It is an act of partnership with infinite intelligence. Each written plan is a prayer turned into a physical structure. You are saying to the universe, I am ready to cooperate. Show me the steps, and I will take them. Life always answers such order with a corresponding result. The clearer your blueprint, the faster the response from the material world. Every plan must be tested in the furnace of action. Execution reveals the flaws that thought alone cannot detect. Begin the work, observe the result, improve the method, and continue the march. Planning and acting are the twin forces of progress. Each perfects the other. A plan without action is a lifeless statue. Action without a plan is a destructive storm. Together they form the mechanism of achievement. Say aloud each morning, my plan is definite. My plan obeys my will. My will obeys the law. Speak it until your mind believes it with the certainty of iron. This repetition engraves obedience upon the subconscious. In time, you will act in harmony with your design without a moment of hesitation.
Keep your plan visible. Place it where your eyes must meet it daily, above your desk, beside your bed, in the pocket of your coat. Let it become the silent command that shapes your choices. When doubt whispers, read the plan. When fatigue tempts you to drift, let the blueprint remind you that order is freedom. You will soon discover that planning organizes not only your time, but your very thought. Problems that once seemed like overwhelming mountains break down into smaller, solvable parts. Confusion dissolves. You move from the chaos of reaction to the sovereignty of creation. Others will notice your calm efficiency and your quiet focus. They will call it talent, but it is simply the fruit of organization. Planning refines your faith. Each task completed according to the blueprint proves that the law is true. Each small success strengthens the belief in the final result. Momentum builds. The once distant goal begins to draw near. What seemed miraculous to the observer now feels inevitable to the architect. That is the reward of organized planning. It turns impossibility into a schedule. Your plan must include moments of rest and reflection. Even the most precise machine must pause for maintenance and lubrication. Review your week as a craftsman inspects his tools. Keep the sharpness of your mind and the order of your days intact. Do not share your plan with every passing ear. Speak only to those who have the power and the will to strengthen it. The opinions of doubters are the poisons of progress. Protect your vision from the careless and the cynical. Discuss it only with your mastermind alliance, those who understand the sacred nature of faith and order. When you live by a plan, the days stop controlling you. You begin to control the days. The clock no longer dictates your mood, your purpose does. You no longer wonder what to do next. You act because the decision was made yesterday in the clarity of the study. That calm certainty is true power. Others will begin to view you as reliable, capable, and precise. They will entrust you with greater responsibility and greater capital, knowing that your word and your schedule are one and the same. This reputation, once formed, acts as a magnet for opportunity. The world bends naturally toward those who move in rhythm with the law. A plan is more than words on paper. It is character in action. The man who follows his plan trains his mind to obey command. He becomes the general of his own destiny. Each victory of order over confusion builds his inner authority. Soon, discipline becomes instinct. By mastering the law of planning, you save years of error. You no longer wander into paths that are unfit for your purpose. Each step becomes deliberate. You move faster, not by rushing, but removing waste. This is how planning saves 10, 20, even 30 years of a man's life. Now that you have given your purpose a structure, you must learn to guard that structure from intrusion. The world is a noisy place. Distractions are many, and even the best-laid plan can crumble under the weight of a divided attention. Therefore, the next step is essential. You must command your attention itself. You must master focus so fully that no thought, no person, and no circumstance can pull you from your line of progress. In the next principle, you will learn the art of concentration, the law of controlled attention. For no plan can serve you until your mind learns to serve your plan.
There are two kinds of men in this industrial age. There are those who direct their attention, and there are those whose attention is directed by the world. The first man creates, the second man merely reacts. The one lives deliberately, like the architect of a cathedral. The other drifts through borrowed thoughts, like a leaf in a gale. Attention is the invisible hand that shapes your destiny. It is the currency of the soul. Whatever you hold in the furnace of your mind will expand. Whatever you neglect will decay and turn to rust. To control your attention is to control your life. Most minds today resemble a factory with open windows during a storm. Every noise from the street, every gust of gossip, every memory of failure, and every whisper of fear rushes in to disturb the machinery. But the man of power closes those windows. He bars the doors. He chooses with absolute sovereignty what may enter his mental workshop. He treats his attention as sacred ground, the high-pressure boiler of his success. He knows that where the mind lingers, the body must soon follow, and that no man can build a skyscraper of strength upon the shifting sands of a distracted mind. Controlled attention is the open secret of the genius and the billionaire. Thomas Edison could lose himself for 18 hours in a single problem, oblivious to the passage of time or the hunger of his body, while the common man gives up at the first sign of difficulty. John D. Rockefeller's mind stayed as calm as a frozen lake amid the most violent financial storms because his attention was disciplined. It was anchored to his purpose, not to the panic of the marketplace. Abraham Lincoln, in his darkest hours of civil strife, refused to fix his gaze upon despair. He held his mind upon the singular end he sought, the unity of a nation, and in doing so he turned a historical tragedy into a monumental triumph. To master your attention is to command the most precious form of energy given to man. The mind, much like light, grows exponentially powerful when it is concentrated. Diffused light warms very little, it is weak and scattered. But focused through a magnifying lens, that same light can burn through solid timber and melt the hardest steel. So it is with your thought. The organized man scatters his energy upon 100 trivial tasks and finishes none with excellence. The organized man completes what he begins because he attends to one thing at a time, fully, deliberately, and with the weight of his entire soul. You must learn to hold one single idea in your mind without the mental drift that plagues the masses. Begin tonight with the exercise of single thought focus. Take one idea, perhaps the image of your completed goal, and hold it for 60 seconds. Your mind will try to wander, it will try to leak energy. Gently but firmly return it to the center. Each repetition of this return strengthens your mental muscle. In time, you will find that you can command your thoughts as firmly as a master sculptor commands his chisel. Understand this industrial truth. Every form of overthinking, every moment of paralyzing worry is nothing more than attention left ungoverned. The mind that has no definite task will invent trouble to occupy its gears. Give it a mission, give it a command, and the confusion vanishes like smoke in the wind. The man who trains his attention no longer reacts to the headlines of the world or the moods of his neighbors. He decides which thoughts are worthy of his time. Controlled attention also breeds a profound, unshakable calmness. When you choose to dwell on faith instead of fear, order begins to replace anxiety in your very nervous system. Your pulse obeys your focus. To think of peace is to become peaceful. To think of failure is to invite the ghost of ruin into your house. You are the gardener of your own thought, and attention is the hand that chooses which seed to water and which weed to pull. There is a divine rhythm in this law. Whatever is repeatedly held in the heat of your thought must, by law, express itself in physical form. The subconscious mind, that obedient, tireless servant, acts upon the last idea impressed upon it with the weight of emotion. If that idea is confusion, it produces a life of disorder. If it is clarity, it produces a life of precision. The man who controls his attention controls the input of his subconscious, and the man who controls his subconscious controls the material world. Do not mistake this control for strain. The master of attention does not grind his teeth in effort, he relaxes into his focus. His concentration is effortless because it flows from the definiteness we established in the first principle. He does not chase 100 impressions, he commands one. Like the river that wears away the hardest granite over time, his calm, persistent focus shapes his circumstances. Each day, decide upon the single most important thought to hold. Write it upon a card if you must. Let that thought dominate your morning. Let it guide the rhythm of your hands. Refuse every impulse that does not serve that thought. Each refusal of a distraction strengthens your will. Each act of focus increases your magnetism. In time, your very presence will radiate the quiet authority of a man who knows what he thinks. When the world throws its noise at you, when 2026 brings its inevitable challenges, remember this law. Nothing can disturb a mind that refuses to attend to the disturbance. You cannot be made to feel inferior unless you consent to focus on inferiority. You cannot be made anxious unless you choose to contemplate the possibility of failure. The power of attention lies in its exclusivity. To attend to one thing is to withdraw your life force from all others. Think again of the sunbeam. Scattered across a field, it is pleasant but powerless. Focused through a glass, it becomes a laser of creation. When you hold one desire, one purpose, one image of inevitable success, every element of your life begins to align itself. Opportunities you once missed will seem to appear out of the thin air. People who possess the power to help you will be drawn to you as if by an invisible thread. This is not mystery or magic, it is magnetic law.
Controlled attention also organizes your emotional climate. When your thought is definite, your feelings have no choice but to obey. The restless heart becomes steady the moment it knows its direction. This is why worry fades under the heat of concentration. Fear cannot survive in the presence of an active, focused faith. As soon as you direct your mind to the solution, the problem loses its grip on your throat. Say to yourself throughout the day, I direct my attention, I choose my thoughts, I finish what I start. Repeat this until the words are etched into the iron of your subconscious. The untrained mind is a slave to its emotions. The trained mind is the commander of its spirit. Your ability to control your focus determines how the world perceives you. People instinctively trust the man who listens fully, the man who looks into their eyes without the mental flicker of distraction. They feel his presence because his mind is not scattered across the horizon. Such focus builds influence. The world respects the individual who has mastered his own internal world, for he can be trusted to master the external world. The opposite of control is drift, and drift begins in the smallest of indulgences. A few idle minutes of gossip here, a small meaningless distraction there. Each one acts as a small leak in your pressure tank. Soon your command weakens, your decisions grow blurry, the day is lost to the void. Beware of drift disguised as harmless entertainment. In the 2026 landscape of digital noise, it is the thief of genius. The organized life demands selective attention. You must have a time for deep thought, a time for explosive action, and a time for total rest. Controlled attention saves your physical energy. The body tires much less when the mind is not divided against itself. You will notice after only a few days of this practice that your fatigue diminishes. Why? Because the inner conflict has ceased. The divided man spends half his strength fighting his own doubts. The focused man moves forward effortlessly with the momentum of a falling weight. This law also protects your peace. When you learn to shift your attention at will, you gain total freedom from the prison of worry. The overthinker is a captive of his own runaway thoughts. The disciplined thinker is the master of the house. The moment you feel the cold breath of unease, shift your focus. Think of your purpose. Think of your gratitude. Think of the end result. The mind is a singular channel. It cannot hold two opposing ideas at once. Choose the higher and the lower must dissolve. Even in the marketplace, control your attention. Listen deliberately to the man across from you. The mind that listens builds an empire of understanding. The mind that is merely preparing its next reply breeds only confusion. Rockefeller once said that most men fail because they talk before they have finished thinking. Controlled attention reverses this. It teaches you to hear the unspoken, to see the hidden opportunity, and then to strike with the precision of a hammer. There will be days when focus feels impossible. On those days, do not panic. Simplify. Return to your breath. Return to your written purpose. 1 minute of true singular attention is worth more than 10 hours of scattered, frantic effort. The master does not seek perfection in every moment. He seeks consistency in the law. Each act of returning your focus to your goal strengthens your mastery for the next battle. Others will soon remark upon the change in your aura. They will notice that you seem unhurried even when the workload is massive. They will see that you remain decisive even when the pressure is at its peak. They will call you calm, but you will know the truth. It is not calmness, it is control. You no longer live by the reaction of a servant, you live by the decision of a king. This principle, when practiced daily,
organizes every other law. Planning without focus collapses like a house of cards. Discipline without attention becomes a hollow routine. Attention is the power that makes order possible. When your focus is mastered, the rest of your life arranges itself with the beauty of a geometric pattern. As your power of focus deepens, even your gratitude becomes more effective. You will notice the small details that others overlook, the subtle shift in the market, the quiet joy of a task well done, the peace of a day lived in alignment. The man of attention lives more fully because he is actually present at his own life. Remember, what you continually hold in mind must, by law, become your reality. Thought repeated becomes belief. Belief repeated becomes fact. Guard that repetition with your life. Attend only to what you wish to create in this new year.
There is no greatness without rhythm, and there is no rhythm without discipline. Look around you at the material world. The universe itself is not a collection of accidents. It is a masterpiece of order. The sun does not decide whether to rise. It obeys a law. The tides do not negotiate with the moon. They follow a gravity that is absolute. The seasons follow their appointed sequence with the precision of a master watchmaker. Everything that is enduring, everything that has the power to last 1,000 years, moves in a pattern. Only man, in his supreme ignorance and his desire for comfort, breaks this law and then wonders why his life has fallen into the suit of chaos. Discipline is not a cage for your spirit. It is your conscious return to the rhythm of creation. Many speak of freedom in the streets today, but they do not understand the word. Freedom does not come from the escape of law. It comes from the mastery of law. The man who refuses order is not free. He is a slave to chance, a servant to his moods, and a victim of his own wandering impulses. But the man who embraces routine, the man who builds a structure for his hours, he is the only one who truly rules his world. To build a disciplined life is to cooperate with the very forces that govern all the energy in the universe. Discipline is faith expressed through repetition. To do what must be done, whether or not your fickle emotions agree with the task, is the singular mark of mastery. The undisciplined man acts only when he is inspired by a passing whim. The disciplined man acts until the inspiration follows the action. The former lives in a state of constant reaction to his environment. The latter lives in a state of absolute command. Every great fortune, every revolutionary invention, every bridge that spans a chasm has been built upon 10,000 small acts of obedience to the law. Thomas Edison worked at fixed hours regardless of the weather, regardless of his fatigue, and regardless of the laughter of his critics. My own days were reviewed with the precision of a banker's ledger. Abraham Lincoln read and wrote at the same cold hour of dawn before his household stirred, carving his intellect out of the silence. Their lives were not guided by impulse, they were guided by design. They understood that the secret of discipline is simplicity. You do not need 1,000 rules. You need a few vital actions repeated until they become as natural as breathing. The body will resist you at first. It will cry out for the cradle of ease. It will beg for the distraction of the crowd. But the mind, once it is convinced of the purpose, must lead the body like a captain leads a ship. Routine is the skeleton of success. Without a skeleton, a man is a shapeless mass. With one, he can stand firm while the storms of 2026 collapse the houses of the confused. You must set apart 1 hour of your day, your hour of dominion, as sacred ground. In that hour, you plan, you review, you reflect, and you prepare the iron. Let no man, no noise, and no digital distraction intrude upon that hour. It is your daily conference with infinite intelligence. In time, you will find that this 1 hour of order begins to govern the other 23. A day begun in order
rarely ends in confusion. Discipline is not monotony, it is harmony. The musician does not find the repeating of scales to be a prison. He knows that the scales are what free him to eventually create a masterpiece. The disciplined mind repeats right action until the right action becomes instinct. Repetition is not imprisonment, it is the liberation from the agony of uncertainty. When fatigue whispers in your ear to rest, you must ask yourself, is it my body that is tired, or is it my mind that is bored? Often, it is not the labor that exhausts a man, but the friction of his own indecision. The disciplined man rests because he has earned the rest through a choice, not because his weakness has commanded him to quit. Every great industrial enterprise began as a habit. Henry Ford turned the act of daily improvement into a mechanical system. He required his engineers to bring one small advancement every single day. 1,000 small refinements built the motor that changed the world. Such is the power of daily discipline. It transforms small, humble deeds into monumental, world-shaking results. Do not despise the small beginnings. The seed obeys the same law as the forest. Your first attempts at order may seem insignificant to the world, but the law of persistence will multiply them until they are undeniable. The mind learns through repetition, just as the arm learns strength through the labor of the forge. Discipline trains both to obey without the need for an internal debate. Say to yourself each morning, my order is my freedom, my routine is my peace. I persist until I prevail. Say it again when the temptation to drift appears. This affirmation burns the truth into your subconscious record. Chaos is slavery. Order is strength. The world rewards those whose excellence is predictable. Employers, partners, investors, and friends all trust the man who keeps his word through habit, not through mood. Discipline builds a reputation, and reputation is the primary currency of opportunity. Reliability is magnetism. It attracts confidence as surely as a massive magnet draws iron filings from the dust. Some imagine that discipline requires the destruction of joy. They confuse control with repression. But I tell you, the disciplined man feels more joy than the drifter, for he is no longer at war with his own soul. He acts without the internal conflict of should I or can I. He acts because he has decided. His peace is born from his integrity, the state where his thought, his word, and his deed are aligned in a straight line. To live by law is to live in power. When you follow a fixed rhythm of study, work, and reflection, your days begin to flow with the grace of a perfectly oiled machine. You no longer fight time, you cooperate with it. The hours actually expand for the man who uses them with precision. I owed my entire peace of mind to the order of my day. I knew when to begin, I knew when to stop, and I knew when to think. I did not live by the reaction of the servant, I lived by the design of the master.
The nervous, undisciplined man wastes half his life's energy just changing his mind. He starts a task, hesitates, looks at his watch, and wonders if he should be doing something else. The organized man moves in a straight line toward his target. Discipline must reach beyond your labor and into your very thought. You must train your mind to return to your definite purpose every time it tries to wander toward the trivial. The same rule that governs the body must govern the brain. Repeat the right thought until it becomes your default setting. A disciplined mind no longer wrestles with temptation, it simply obeys a higher command. Each night, before you allow sleep to take you, you must conduct a nightly audit. You must review your day, not in a spirit of self-condemnation, but in a spirit of correction. Ask yourself, did I follow my blueprint? Did I allow a distraction to steal my time? Did I act with the faith of a titan or with the fear of a drifter? This nightly accounting keeps your conscience clean and your purpose sharp. The man who reviews himself daily saves himself 10 years of regret. Discipline is also the ultimate cure for doubt. When you act according to a schedule, you simply do not have the time to question your worth. Faith grows through the hands of execution. The man who waits for confidence before he begins will die waiting. The man who acts with order discovers that confidence is a byproduct of his own obedience to his plan. Even your emotions will eventually bow before your routine. The man who continues his work in the midst of discouragement finds that his feelings change with his momentum. Emotion cannot resist movement that is directed by a strong will. Therefore, the disciplined man never trusts his moods, he only trusts his habits. There will be moments when the law of discipline feels heavy upon your shoulders. There will be days when the routine seems dull and the fire seems low. In those moments, remind yourself that even nature pauses, but she never quits. The tide recedes only so it can return with greater force. The seed sleeps in the winter only so it can explode in the spring. So too must you rest without drifting and resume your work without complaint. Others will envy your consistency. They will call you fortunate, but they are blind to the truth. Fortune is simply discipline made visible to the world. The world admires steadiness because it is so rare in an age of noise and distraction. In a society that is falling apart through a lack of focus, the man who finishes what he begins becomes a beacon of authority. Your discipline must also include the habit of gratitude. You must begin and end your day by giving thanks for the power to choose order over chaos. Gratitude sweetens your labor and transforms duty into devotion. The disciplined man does not work from a sense of grim necessity. He works from a sense of reverence for the law. Remember, freedom is not doing as you please, it is doing as you planned. The former breeds the rot of guilt, the latter breeds the strength of peace. To live by design is to live without the shadow of regret. When the rhythm of discipline has been fully established in your subconscious, you will feel a quiet, massive power rising within you, a sense that you are moving with the very current of life itself. This harmony is the reward of your obedience. The man who lives by rhythm cannot be hurried, and he cannot be halted. He is as steady as the sunrise over the Atlantic. Now that you have built order into your habits and rhythm into your hours, you must learn to master the inner climate of your soul. For what good is outer order if the heart remains in turmoil? To organize your life fully, you must learn to organize your emotion. You must learn to rule your feelings with the same iron hand that rules your thoughts. In the next principle, we turn to the law of emotional command. You will learn to make calmness your unshakable strength and to ensure that no storm on the outside can ever disturb the peace of the great machine on the inside.
The greatest victories in the history of industry and empire are not won on the open battlefields or in the crowded boardrooms. They are won within the silent territory of the individual mind. The man who cannot command himself, the man who is a victim of his own fluctuating moods, can never hope to command his circumstances. It is not poverty that breaks a man. It is not criticism that halts his progress. It is not even the sting of failure. It is uncontrolled emotion. The disorganized man is ruled by his moods. He is a servant to the weather of his soul. But the organized man rules his moods. Emotional command is not a state of coldness or the absence of feeling. It is composure. It is the still, unwavering flame that burns even when the winds of crisis rise to a hurricane. Every emotion you feel is a form of energy. It is neither good nor evil until it is directed by the will. Fear and faith are, in truth, the exact same force turned in opposite directions. One destroys the foundation,
The other creates the skyscraper. To feel fear is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of misused power. To convert that fear into faith is the mark of a titan. When you learn to harness the heat of your emotions, you stop being a creature of reaction and you become a creator of rhythm. A man who controls his emotions becomes an irresistible force in the marketplace. The world senses his stability. His voice carries the weight of authority. His presence commands the attention of the room, not because he is the loudest, but because he is the calmest. Calmness is magnetic. In the presence of an ordered mind, confusion simply cannot endure. Abraham Lincoln was such a man. During the darkest years of the Civil War, when his nation was torn in two and his own advisors were paralyzed by panic, he remained serene. His calmness did not come from an ignorance of the danger. It came from an absolute obedience to a higher law. He knew that the turmoil on the outside could never disturb the mind that remained anchored in principle on the inside. The first step toward emotional command is awareness. You cannot control what you do not observe with the eye of a scientist. You must watch your emotions as a refiner watches the flame of a furnace. When anger rises, do not justify it, analyze its source. When fear whispers in your ear, do not hide from it, question it. Ask, what lesson is this energy trying to teach me? Every emotion is a messenger. The undisciplined man attacks the messenger. The wise man reads the message and adjusts the gears. The second step is the law of substitution. The human mind is a singular channel. It cannot hold two opposing emotions at the same time. When fear appears, you must introduce the coal of faith. When irritation arises, you must summon the cooling water of gratitude. When doubt intrudes, you must recall your definite purpose. Substitution is the mental art of industrial transmutation. You do not fight the darkness, you simply light the candle. Practice this law daily. Before you react to a slight, a setback, or a sudden crisis, pause. This is the pause of dominion. Take one deep, deliberate breath and remember your purpose. Emotion loses half of its power the moment it is observed, and the other half the moment it is redirected toward a goal. By mastering this simple pause, you will prevent 1,000 regrets, and you will command every conversation with the grace of a king. Say quietly to yourself in the heat of the moment, "My calmness is my power. My composure commands the result." Speak it until your very pulse obeys the command. Soon you will feel the truth of it. The body softens, the breath slows, the mind clears of soot. Calmness is not the absence of energy, it is energy under absolute control. You will find that your environment begins to mirror your inner state. People instinctively trust the man who does not lose his head when the pressure rises. They confide in him, they follow him, and they seek his counsel in times of war. Why? Because order is contagious. When you master your emotions, you organize the emotions of everyone in your circle without ever saying a word. John D. Rockefeller was famous for this internal iron. During the most violent financial panics of the 19th century, while other men were leaping from windows or weeping in the streets, he remained unshaken. His calmness saved millions, not because he possessed more capital than the others, but because he possessed more composure. He understood that panic destroys capital faster than any fire, and that serenity attracts the opportunities that fear always misses. Do not mistake suppression for command. The man who buries his emotions becomes rigid and brittle. He eventually cracks under the strain. The man who directs his emotions becomes a power plant. Emotion must flow through your purpose, not against it. If anger arises, channel it into constructive action. Let it drive the improvement of your system, not the destruction of your neighbor.
If sorrow comes, use it to deepen your understanding of the human condition, not to weaken your resolve. Undisciplined emotion disorganizes the entire system of the mind. It scatters your attention, it disrupts your discipline, and it blinds your judgment. You cannot think accurately when passion has seized the controls of reason. To remain orderly, feeling must serve thought, and thought must serve the law. Emotional command is a spiritual practice. It is not learned in an afternoon. It is cultivated through a lifetime of observation and choice.
Begin each morning, before you engage with the world, by setting your emotional intention. Decide what state you will maintain regardless of the market conditions. Say, today I will remain calm. Today I will interpret every event as an opportunity for advancement. This conscious choice organizes your subconscious bookkeeper, and the subconscious will enforce that command throughout the hours of the day. The man who commands his emotions no longer fears his circumstances. He sees adversity as industrial exercise, not as punishment. Every irritation becomes an opportunity to strengthen his control. Each trial becomes a teacher in a different mask. When you meet difficulty with composure, you prove to the infinite intelligence that you are ready for a greater weight of power. Understand this. Calmness is not inaction. It is precision. The calm mind acts swiftly because it wastes no time in the friction of panic. A decision made under agitation is nearly always a decision that will need to be corrected later. A single moment of stillness can save you 20 years of recovery. Observe how the men of destiny carry themselves. They do not rush. They do not argue. They do not react to the petty stings of the small-minded. Their tone remains measured even when they are opposed by a multitude. This quiet confidence disarms hostility, and it commands the respect of the opponent. To argue is to confess that you have been moved. To remain composed is to reveal that you are unmovable. Your emotional state sets the rhythm of your entire factory. A single anxious manager can infect an entire workforce with the rot of worry. But a single calm leader can restore the peace of 1,000 men. Therefore, treat your calmness as a sacred service to others. The man who radiates peace performs an unseen charity every time he walks through a door. Each evening, review your emotional conduct as if you were auditing your finances. Ask, did I remain the master of my tone today? Did I speak from faith, or did I let the fear of others dictate my words? Did I allow a passing mood to derail my organized plan? This reflection transforms your raw experience into the gold of wisdom. In time, composure will become your reflex. You will notice a new power entering your presence. People who once dismissed your ideas will start to listen with a tilted head. Circumstances that once intimidated you will seem to yield to your approach. The world cannot resist a composed mind because it recognizes the harmony of the spheres within it. The law always responds to order. Even your prosperity depends upon your emotional balance. Money obeys confidence. It flees from the smell of tension. The man who fears loss attracts the very loss he dreads. The one who acts from a state of calm faith multiplies his holdings without effort. When you handle wealth without the frantic attachment of the desperate, it circulates freely through your hands. Gratitude invites supply. Greed repels it. Emotion and thought are partners in the great work. One provides the fuel. The other provides the direction. When both move in harmony, the act of creation begins. When they oppose one another, chaos is the only result. Therefore, train your feelings as you train your focus. Let faith, gratitude, and serenity become your habitual mood.
Do not wait for perfect conditions to practice this. Command your emotions in the midst of the noise. The storm is your classroom. The man who can smile in the face of adversity possesses the highest diploma the universe can grant. There will come a day when your composure will be tested by those who envy your peace. Remain silent in those moments. The man who argues with confusion lowers his own frequency to the level of the gutter. Silence, when it is deliberate, is speech in its most powerful form. Over time, emotional command refines your very character. You will become less reactive and more deliberate. Your words will carry more weight, and your gestures will carry more authority. Others will feel safe in your presence, for order soothes the human heart. And as your emotions align with the law, your mind will grow clear. Your physical health will improve. Your sleep will deepen. Disorder within breeds exhaustion. Harmony restores the strength of the youth. The calm man lives longer because he wastes no life force in the friction of turmoil. Repeat this truth each night before you close your eyes. I am calm. I am certain. I am directed by faith. Speak it slowly until every cell of your being vibrates with the peace of a finished engine. The subconscious will receive this final command of the day, and it will rebuild you in its image while you rest. Once your emotions obey you, action becomes effortless. You will move through your day with the grace of rhythm. This harmony between thought and feeling completes the foundation of your personal organization. Yet order must also extend beyond the self. To master life fully, you must master the circulation of energy. In the next principle, we turn to the law of circulation and service. You will learn how the organized life becomes the abundant life, and how the flow of value governs the flow of gold.
Money, time, and opportunity obey the same law as the blood that pulses through your veins. They must circulate, or they will begin to decay. The stagnant pool disconnected from the river breeds disease and rot. The flowing river, however, renews its strength every hour. Life itself is circulation. To block the current of value is to die a little each day in the cold shade of poverty. The man who fears giving, whether it be a gift of effort, a gift of capital, or a gift of kindness, is building a dam around his own blessings. The law of circulation demands constant motion, and the man who serves willingly sets that motion in perfect harmony with the abundance of the universe. Wealth is not gathered by the desperate act of hoarding, it is gathered by the rhythmic act of flow. A miser may clutch his gold with white knuckles, but he clutches also his own fear. He shuts the window through which the new supply must enter. To receive, you must first possess the courage to release. The open hand not only gives, it is the only hand that can receive with equal ease. Every great fortune on this earth was first a flow of service. Money is merely the shadow cast by the value you create for your fellow man. I, Andrew Carnegie, proved this law long before I built the first hearth in Pittsburgh. I mastered the art of being useful. I rendered more value than I was paid for, and nature, in her infinite justice, multiplied my return. When my fortune was secure, I released it again, into libraries, into universities, and into foundations, thus keeping the current of the gospel of wealth alive. My wealth grew because my service never ceased its circulation. The man who serves in faith never diminishes his stock, he expands his capacity. To live richly, you must view giving not as a loss, but as intelligent sowing. The farmer who buries his finest seed in the dark earth does not mourn the loss of the grain. It is his investment in the future. He trusts the law of growth. So must you trust the law of service. Every act of generosity, Every hour of extra labor and every word of encouragement is a seed planted in the soil of 2026, and no seed planted in faith ever fails to bear its fruit in the proper season. Service is the organizing principle of true prosperity. Without it, success is a hollow shell that collapses into vanity. The greatest empires of industry have endured not by the act of exploitation, but by the act of usefulness. Henry Ford gave the common man the dignity of mobility. John D. Rockefeller provided the light to a world in darkness. Each became wealthy because they rendered what mankind required most: organized, consistent service. There is a divine intelligence behind this law. The universe increases that which contributes to its order, and it diminishes that which resists its progress. The man who serves more than he is paid for sets in motion unseen forces that work tirelessly to promote him while he sleeps. Each evening, you must ask yourself, where did I serve today? Where did I add value to the mill of human progress? These reflections will keep your heart in motion and prevent the stagnation of the soul. Say within yourself, I serve willingly. I receive gratefully. My giving organizes my increase. Repeat it until it becomes your nature, for gratitude is the magnet that pulls the return to every act of service.
Finally, we come to the seal of the masterwork, Principle 7, the law of continuous growth and reflection. All true order grows from within. Just as a great oak strengthens its trunk through new rings each year, the mind of the Titan must add layers of understanding, patience, and power through the act of daily reflection. Organization that does not renew itself will eventually decay. Discipline without growth becomes a hollow habit. Habit without reflection becomes a form of bondage. The mind that refuses to learn today condemns itself to repeat the failures of yesterday. Growth is not an event, it is a rhythm. It begins in curiosity, it matures through the fire of reflection, and it perfects itself in the steel of understanding. No man ever finishes his education in the school of success. The truly wise man remains a student even when the world calls him a master. He does not rest upon the victory of last year, he reviews it for the lessons of next year. Success attained today must be examined tomorrow with the cold eye of the auditor. Every triumph hides within it a lesson for a greater work. Thomas Edison, even in the height of his glory, kept notebooks full of failures and reflections. He did not lament his errors, he extracted their principles. His reflection turned an experiment into a law. So must you end each day with a nightly review. Ask, what did I learn today? Where did my mind drift? What did I create? How shall I improve the machinery of my soul for the morning whistle? Do not rush this ritual. It is the turning of raw experience into the gold of wisdom. A man who reviews his day each night saves himself 10 years of wandering in the desert of confusion. Keep a book of order beside your bed. Record not the events, but the principles. Write what life has taught you in the heat of the day. Over the months,
Finally, we come to the seal of the masterwork, Principle 7, the law of continuous growth and reflection. All true order grows from within. Just as a great oak strengthens its trunk through new rings each year, the mind of the Titan must add layers of understanding, patience, and power through the act of daily reflection. Organization that does not renew itself will eventually decay. Discipline without growth becomes a hollow habit. Habit without reflection becomes a form of bondage. The mind that refuses to learn today condemns itself to repeat the failures of yesterday. Growth is not an event, it is a rhythm. It begins in curiosity, it matures through the fire of reflection, and it perfects itself in the steel of understanding.
No man ever finishes his education in the school of success. The truly wise man remains a student even when the world calls him a master. He does not rest upon the victory of last year. He reviews it for the lessons of next year. Success attained today must be examined tomorrow with the cold eye of the auditor. Every triumph hides within it a lesson for a greater work. Thomas Edison, even in the height of his glory, kept notebooks full of failures and reflections. He did not lament his errors, he extracted their principles. His reflection turned an experiment into a law. So must you end each day with a nightly review. Ask, what did I learn today? Where did my mind drift? What did I create? How shall I improve the machinery of my soul for the morning whistle? Do not rush this ritual. It is the turning of raw experience into the gold of wisdom. A man who reviews his day each night saves himself 10 years of wandering in the desert of confusion. Keep a book of order beside your bed. Record not the events, but the principles. Write what life has taught you in the heat of the day. Over the months, these pages will reveal the architecture of your character. You will see yourself evolving with the accuracy of a blueprint. Reflection refines your perception. It strips life of its noise, and it exposes the pattern beneath. The disorganized man rushes blindly from one crisis to the next. The reflective man pauses to see how his actions align with his definite purpose. Each pause strengthens his awareness. Awareness perfects his control, and control perfects his peace. You must understand that growth is the only antidote to stagnation. The moment a man stops learning, the rot of decay begins in his spirit. His opinions harden like slag, his imagination dulls like a rusted blade, and his world shrinks to the size of his habits. But the man who studies daily keeps his soul supple and his destiny alive. His ideas remain fresh because he waters them with new thought from the great minds of history. Commit to lifelong study. Read the great books until their truths sink beneath your memory and into your very character. Repetition is the only path to mastery. Each hearing of these principles deepens your comprehension because each time you listen, you are a different man. The truth does not change, but you change. Every return to wisdom strengthens your inner order. The subconscious mind requires this repetition to rewire its deepest beliefs. The world calls this habit, but we know it is sacred programming. You are teaching your mind to obey the laws of harmony. Growth also demands the luxury of silence. The reflective man seeks moments of solitude, not for the sake of escape, but for the sake of alignment. In the stillness, he hears what the noise of action cannot reveal. The mind, like a pond, grows clear only when it is undisturbed. Reflection is your responsibility as a leader. The man who fails to reflect leads his family and his business into a fog of confusion. Reflection cleanses your leadership. It ensures that you are not confusing comfort with completion. The man who stops improving because he feels secure has already begun his decline. Life demands constant movement toward a higher standard. Each morning as you rise, renew your vision. Ask, what law can I practice more perfectly today? Whether it be gratitude, persistence, or composure, focus on the refinement. Small daily elevations in your character produce a monumental transformation in your fortune. Progress, when it is compounded by time, is power magnified. Growth cannot occur without the humility of the student. To learn, you must admit your own imperfection. The proud man remains blind. The humble man transforms his ignorance into the steel of understanding. Pride says, I know. Wisdom whispers, teach me again.
Reflection dissolves the pride, because truth, once seen clearly, humbles every man. You will notice that as you reflect, your perception of the world softens. You no longer waste energy in the friction of resentment. You invest your energy in the act of creation. Learning daily keeps your imagination in a state of high pressure. Inspiration is not random. It flows to the man who prepares for its arrival through study and reflection. To practice this final law is to honor the gift of time. Each hour spent in self-examination multiplies the value of all other hours. The day that is reviewed is a day that is never wasted. The man who reflects on failure turns a defeat into a blueprint for a skyscraper. He no longer searches for meaning, he creates meaning. Thus ends the circle of organization. Purpose gives birth to the plan. The plan demands the attention. Attention requires the discipline. Discipline shapes the emotion. Emotion guides the service, and reflection renews the entire engine. Together, these 7 principles form the rhythm of mastery. When practiced daily, they do more than organize your time. They organize your destiny. You will save 20, even 30 years of confusion by learning to live in deliberate harmony with the law. And when others ask how you built such a life of peace and power, you may simply answer, I learned to live by order. The sound of the massive steam hammer strikes one final time, loud, solid, and echoing into the distance. The morning whistle is about to blow for 2026. The sun is rising over the mills of your future. You have the blueprint, you have the fuel, you have the law. I am Andrew Carnegie. I am the Iron Master, and this is my gospel.